Hey guys, welcome to Mouths of the Merrimack. I'm Captain Chris here with,
Dandy Daddy.
and we get a really special show today. We have our good friends, Captain Mike Fallon
Hi.
and Captain Danny Lee.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And today, our main topic of conversation is an incredible story of these guys. Actually, all three of them, Dan, Mike, and Danny, all went out recently with a prize catch in mind. And I don't know, Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about it since you were kind of the one that started the whole thing off way back in October?
I think it was Danny and I talking a while back, and we wanted to try some different stuff and catch some stuff that's a little different around here. I feel like just growing up in the area and fishing on the Merrimack, we're a little bit more limited species-wise than most of the country and most of the state in particular. And so we decided we were going to try to catch a halibut, and they're definitely caught. It's not like there aren't halibut caught every year, but we wanted to give it a shot. And so over the winter, when you're bored in January, February, March, after hunting season and before they start stocking trout, got a lot of free time on your hands. Yeah, or I had a lot of free time on my hands, I should say. And did a lot of research and came up with some ideas. And that's really kind of, Danny and I were talking about giving it a shot and waiting for the right conditions, the right moon and some other stuff, and decided to give it a shot.
And so what was really cool about your guys' trip and the way we were thinking about it is that most people who catch a halibut kind of get it bycatch. They're not specifically going out there for halibut. They might have some ideas and trying to get one, but realistically, most people are probably bottom fishing for haddock and cod, and most halibut are kind of snagged up like incidentally, and it's still always cool. But what really made your story interesting is that you guys are actually going out there to target one, which I'm sure there's probably not a lot of people who consistently do that around here.
Yeah, it was. We thought it was probably going to be an exercise and just going out and catching some other bottom fish, but we wanted to do whatever we could to minimize the bycatch of other species and make sure that we had strong enough stuff that if we did hook one, we had a decent chance at landing it. And so we actually tried to avoid some of the other stuff, I would say, in order to give us kind of more time. We were talking about it and just we're thinking the more time your jig's on the bottom, the better chance you have of something running into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was your first halibut you ever caught, correct?
Yep.
Now, you guys had seen, Danny, I know that you have seen people catch halibut, right? Working on the party boats?
Oh yeah, I've seen probably 8 or 9 come up in the past 8 years or so.
Now, what was the biggest one that you had seen come over the rail?
Last year we were up on the Bunny Clark and Jake Higgins got a 125 or 130.
Oh, that's a good halibut.
Yeah.
That's a good butt. Even back then, that's a huge fish.
Yeah, no, that's a prize catch right there.
Yeah, so seeing how big and how powerful these fish are, what's the scenario with that? Like, how do you even successfully get it up and over?
Like getting it in the boat.
Yeah, that's got to be like a struggle.
Oh, like on a party boat.
Yeah, and then you got
right.
everyone on there like, watch your kneecaps.
Yeah, no, Justin and I lost a big one before trying to lift it over the rail. So after that, we learned just more gaffs and more people just lift it in and back away and let it do its thing on the deck.
Did it go nuts on the party boat when you brought it on?
Oh, yeah. There was one that we, 80-pounder, basically just slammed the gaff in it, lifted it over, and then just backed away, let it flop around, and let it subdue itself.
Yeah. How about you guys? Mike, the one that you got, was it pretty much dead by the time you got it in the boat, or did it go
I don't know,
nuts?
Danny, do you remember? I think I blacked out when I came over the rail.
The first dart that pulled out, I think, bled it out for the last 100 feet, and then when Nick and I tried to lift it over, and I had to call you and Chris over to help lift it over too. It kind of just came in the boat and did 1 or 2 flops, and then that was it.
So going back to the party boats, because that's how me and Mike and Danny actually all met from working at Captain's Fishing Parties on Plum Island. And all my time working there, I think I worked there for 5 or 6 years, and I never saw a halibut ever come over the rail. Mike, did any ever come over while you were working?
I think I saw 1 or 2, but they weren't even legal. They were 30 inches.
Yeah.
And out on Eastern Jeffries and stuff like that. But nothing that looked like a halibut.
Yeah.
They look like big fluke.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So in the research you were doing, did they give any insight as to why, halibut are kind of few and far between around here? Like why they're so elusive? Is it the dragging?
A little bit. That's my theory, is that they're pretty, despite being a very aggressive fish that, just like fluke, or I think are a lot more aggressive than people think. Halibut are I learned were extremely
Yeah, I
aggressive.
mean,
will
they're like an
they'll come
apex
off-
predator almost.
Yeah, they'll come off the bottom, they'll whack stuff. They're pretty crazy, but I do think they're pretty susceptible to dragging, and they take a lot of years to mature. So I think anytime you have animals that take a long time to mature and they're in a predictable area and you can drag them, I think the nets just kind of wipe them out before they're able to, really.
Replace themselves
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah.
How long does it take? Do you know? Was this part of your research before they mature? About
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I did a little research on that, but I forget. But I think the other issue too is finding spots where the nets really can't get them as much, like rocky areas.
yeah.
They don't drag everywhere, and so finding areas maybe they're a little less likely, or like sharp drop offs and rocks. Maybe that lets them live a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And gives them a little chance. Maybe some deeper water. That kind of stuff. But it seems like they're kind of coming back across the board. I mean, we're hearing about more and more of them every year, especially on Jeffries, and which is awesome. So,
Yeah, it definitely seems like over the last few years, there's more and more being caught. So, the fact that you guys were able to say, I'm going to catch a halibut today, and both of you guys, your boat got one and Dan's boat got one.
2 boats went out, 2 boats came back with halibut. Yep. I do have to say, though, in the reports that I had seen just the day prior to and the day before, it was interesting how the fish comes off the bottom the way it does. It's pretty wild. Like Justin got a bite that was on the way up with the Norwegian jig. So it was like 50, 60 feet off of the bottom. And the fish came up to eat it.
Was that the one he landed, or did he get another? He got another one too. Hook up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So, what were some of the things that you were looking at? You said you researched, and it's probably pretty tough to get any kind of information on halibut around here. At least anything relatively recent. Or were you going back to just reading articles? What worked for you? Just your network of people that you know.
I really just did a lot of research on forums and articles. Anything I could find. Some commercial fishing journals had stuff. I mean, most of the content focused on Maine, up in Maine, where they have kind of more of a regular halibut fishery, even in state waters up there if you go up far enough. And they actually have a what is it called, trawl line fishery in the spring in state waters and whatnot. Just kind of got some ideas and knew we kind of wanted to try it before the tuna really show up when we got distracted. So that was the other thing, was kind of finding some decent weather and getting after it before the tuna really show up. And then we don't really want to, spend days trying to catch something that we're probably not going to catch. So.
I know. It was so nice, too. You got it right before the tuna and shark season kind of picks up. So it got you offshore, and you were able to bang out a wicked nice fish. And now you don't have to worry about it. Now it's off the bucket list. So anything else is a bonus if you get out there and try to go for it. Now, Danny, you've gone to Alaska to catch halibut, right?
Yeah, we went up last year to, honestly, I forget right now. Island Point Large in Alaska, in southeast Alaska. And we did good. We got a 200, a 300, a bunch of 180s, and
yeah, I'd say you did all right.
Yeah,
we,
you did good. You did just good.
we took a lot of the information from out west and brought it over to East Coast on what kind of bomb structure we're looking for, what kind of areas, tides and moons.
So were you jigging out there? Were you using jigs, or what'd you use to catch them?
A little bit of both. The biggest one came on a jig, and a lot of the other ones came on bait. Definitely way more fun to catch them on jigs.
Now, what are the differences fishing for them out there compared to here? Because they have a really strong tide out there, correct?
Yeah, you're running 80 feet of water, and sometimes you gotta use 5 pounds of lead.
5 pounds and 80 feet?
Yep. Yeah, you're running an 8-knot tide out there.
Jesus
You
Christ.
probably got a 30-foot tide you're dealing with.
Oh, yeah. 25, 28 was the tide when we were there.
Wow.
And what kind of boat are you in when you're in with a guide?
We did Island Point Lodge is a self-guided lodge, so that you basically get a nice 18-foot skiff, and they hand you the keys and tell you to go out there.
Oh, so you didn't even have a captain? You guys just went out there and caught them?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
And then
badass.
You can only keep one.
You're allowed 2 as a recreational.
So 2 per angler or 2 for the boat?
2 per angler.
Two per
nice.
angler.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What is it in mass? Is it 1 for the boat over 42?
41. Yeah.
41?
Yeah, which is interesting, especially the party boat situation. When you have one come up, that's it. That's all you get for all those people on the boat.
Yeah, that's right. If you get another one, you'd have to let it go, right?
They do. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a good day up here if you catch two halibut on a party boat.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So how about All right, so what kind of gear did you guys stock up on? So were you using anything that you had, or did you kind of get halibut specific rods? Because Mike, yours ended up being, how much did it weigh?
260.
260.
Yeah.
So you're not going out there with your typical haddock rods, just in the case you get something over 100 pounds, I would assume.
Yeah, no, I mean, I ended up using one of my tuna jigging rods. It was a like a black hole 450 with a I think I had 80-pound hollow to 80 or 100-pound fluorocarbon leader, just because I had just rigged it up for tuna jigging, and figured I'd give it a shot. But the short rod actually ended up being pretty nice. It's a little different to slow jig with versus kind of more made for speed jigging, but it did the trick. And leverage was in my favor when we actually hooked up, so that was nice. And the big thing with halibut is, as Danny kept coaching me, is they don't have as tough jaws and mouths, and just there's a lot of like stuff going on around their head, so it's a lot more spaced for a jig hook to just grab a little chunk of flesh and not really get a good hook set. And so as I was told repeatedly on the way up, which was good, not to put too much heat on it. So despite having a setup that could put 30, 40 pounds of drag on a tuna if we really needed to, we probably didn't fight it with much more than 10 or 12 pounds of drag for most of the fight.
Wow.
That's still super high if you think bottom fishing up here too, though,
Yeah, we thumbed it a little bit here and there, but
Yeah.
it was just really it was a lot. Most of the fight was kind of at stalemate, but in just inches here and there.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. You can actually see a video of the fight. Black Hole put it on their website. It's on the website.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, you have a video of it?
Yeah, well,
Oh.
just like fighting the fish. Like there's a little quick clip of it.
Oh,
And,
yeah. I never
it was
seen
whatever
it yet.
Mike posted on his Instagram.
Oh, okay.
They put it up on the website because I was looking through last night at Blanks.
And what did you have for a reel on that black hole?
A OSHA Jigger 4000.
Those
which
things are
is
sweet.
basically a boat winch. The handle is like 8 inches long. And it's not great. I mean, it's actually pretty geared. It's the high gear version, so the line pickup's actually pretty good. I think it's just over 40 inches of crank, but or maybe 46 inches of crank. But you really have a lot of leverage, and it was very comfortable fighting the fish. It was,
It's basically a tunatorium, right? Like it's a jacked up torium, but bigger.
a little different, I think. It's more specifically geared for jigging. The one thing I don't love about it is that it has spool lock on the side instead of a clicker.
Yeah.
Which terrifies me that someone would use that reel and then flick that, trying to put the clicker on, and then game over if you.
Yeah, so that's actually my toriums. I got them from Japan when the back order thing was happening, and that's just how they fish with them. The toriums, they have it locks the drag. It does not have a clicker.
Oh, that's right, because you get the Japanese version.
Yeah.
That's right, I remember that. How about you? Are you fishing the same setup, Danny?
No, I was fishing a Black Hole 731H on a with the Saltus 50 power gear model.
Ooh, the Saltus 50.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many of those at the shops. Did you have to order that online?
No, that was or got that a couple years ago. They had a massive sale on it from Tackle Direct, so I figured I'd pick one up.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, those Steve at Hudson says a no-shit jig is just sitting right there in the case, and I walk by it every day. And I'm like,
boy.
do I buy this thing for
Better not
the
go back
zero amount of tuna jigging I do? But
Yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to hook up on a halibut, but I did have the Zach's Custom 350 gram jigging rod with the Raptor, and it was nice to basically, at least I wet packed the reel.
did Justin get it on his old school potty boat rod?
I forget. No, it was a nicer setup. I forget. I honestly forget what he had though.
Yeah.
It was the I'll think of it. We'll just keep talking.
Was
I
it
don't remember.
was it the Dialer Proteus with his Fathom 40?
I think that's what that
Yeah,
was.
because
what
he
it
got
was.
that. He got that for next year to go to Alaska.
Yep.
Those Proteuses are actually pretty sweet rods for like $100-$120.
Yeah.
Have you fished them at all?
I got 4.
You got 4? There you go. So I guess they're okay.
Yeah.
What are you having for bass or tuna?
I picked up 2 tuna ones and I fished 2 bass ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I think I'm going to probably pick some up too just for like charter stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Mike, as in your research, right? What were some of the things that you found as you were kind of putting your plan together that you found to be like helpful, or at least something that you learned, something different than what you thought? Anything stand out to you?
Not really. Water temperature really doesn't matter. They do like current, So I guess I would say the one thing I saw was they like current. That's what they hunt. I think they hunt better in current. So finding an area that has some current is pretty good.
Yeah, so I would assume like when you consider the ground, like ground fishing for them, maybe like some type of crevice or ravine or ditch or dip or something that sucks water through it.
The high spot.
Yeah, I think most of the year they live in pretty deep water, and then in the spring they come up a little bit higher. I think it's to do with spawning. Might be to come congregate and hang out, and so that was one thing is we thought we had a better chance earlier in the year here, also before we get distracted by tuna, where they might be in a little bit more targetable area because obviously jigging in 500 plus feet of water sounds pretty painful. And that's a lot of feet to lose one if you do hook one. Like,
definitely, yeah.
I wouldn't want to hook that fish in
full
like
spools out there.
600 feet of water.
Is that how deep you were fishing? Like 500, 600 feet?
No, we were closer to like, I don't know, probably closer to 3.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Maybe just under actually. But I think a lot of the year they spend time out there deeper. So, once they slide back off the little slightly higher areas. So
Kind of like haddock, like how in the spring you can get them in like 150, 180. Then as summer goes along, you're kind of fishing that 220, 240, 300 type of range,
Exactly.
overall. And, another thing, just because you mentioned it, you talked about, you thought about the current, right? So like offshore, how does current happen? I would assume you probably need a strong moon, some sort of full new moon might give you the best chance, not like, you has to be, but that would push the current a little bit, would be something I would think about.
I don't think it would hurt. The other thing with current too is it's double-edged sword because it gets a lot harder to jig. You're drifting a lot faster. It complicates things. So what the optimal scenario is, I'm not sure. I know what worked for us, and probably had a bit of luck involved in it as well. But Danny took a lot of the stuff he learned from Alaska and some of the fish he's seen in the past, and we were able to kind of put a plan together based on that. That was really the big thing.
So Dan, what are some of the things from Alaska that you brought here? Because I'm assuming, again, most guys going halibut are probably just throwing a Norwegian jig or some sort of jig, or just dunking clams, hoping to get lucky. So what are some of the techniques that you guys tried that you learned out from Alaska?
Definitely one of the ones we brought over was being able to look at a piece of structure and look at how the tide would come around it.
Yeah.
They're very much ambush predator, just like a fluke. So they're going to sit behind some structure, wait for something to come over them, and take a bite at it if they see it in time. Definitely, picking the moons and everything, the correct tides, not, like Mike said, you don't want to fish somewhere too deep with a fast tide because then it's too hard to fish.
Not going to get down.
You got to pick and choose your moments when you have the opportunity to try to present something in an area where you think a halibut would be. Another thing that we took advantage of was, I keep a notebook at my house with a lot of notes in it on when people have caught halibut in the past, when, where, look back, look at the moons and tides, and, it just happened the window that we had that, and we wanted to go to the area that we went to, it just lined up that we were able to do it.
So the stars literally aligned for the trip.
Yeah.
Danny, I'm gonna take a little sidetrack here. How you talked about keeping a notebook about even other people's catches that you hear about, right? Because I did the same thing for years for thresher sharks. I wanted to target a thresher shark, and you hear some tuna guys getting one. Rarely you actually hear somebody shark fishing catching a thresher shark, right? So it was just kind of years of everyone that I heard. I would make a note and like on a Google Doc, and then go back and like the date, and I would check out the moons and check out the tides, and then literally one day it all kind of lined up. I didn't have a charter that day, and we went out, and within a half an hour putting lines in the water, we got a 400-pound thresher. So those of you that are listening, if you see something on Facebook or a buddy of yours or whatever it is through Mouse of the Merrimack, take some time to go back and take a look what the conditions were like those days, and then you might be able to find a pattern of at least where they are. And I know for the thresher, for me, a big part of it was moon cycle and water temp, and those were two things that we were kind of looking for when we were able to get it, So it was nice to take that time to go try something different and have it be successful. So
definitely, it's not magic; it's science, really, right? So it's I don't know. I'm assuming most people that listen are inshore fishermen mostly, and striped bass, and like that one that we did with Ben Gahagan and Matt Ayer. He was talking about moon cycles and basically the time in the year, and then how they were catching tagged fish like literally feet away from where they caught them the year before.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like the data that they had to basically ultimately prove it. Creatures of habit.
Yeah, that was really cool hearing them talk about it because they were actually the people that tagged the fish, and then they continued the study the next year and caught their tagged fish. Hey, actually, while we're on the subject, real quick, we talked about the color of the tag, right? It was a specific color. What color was it where they said don't cut it off?
Oh, I forget.
Don't say green, because we caught a tagged fish the other day. We cut it off, and she typed in the data, and it never came up. So I'm like, oh, I hope it wasn't one of those.
Oh no.
So there was one. I couldn't remember.
Should have put it in my
green or
notes.
yellow. Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, I'm actually taking Ben and Matt on a charter on Monday. We're gonna do a tag and study on lures.
Awesome.
So tag and release study.
I do want to give them a shout out too. I did an NRIP survey this morning when I got back. They were at the dock. They get you too, Mike?
Didn't get me.
No,
They didn't because Matt texted me and said, "What charter captain's at Rings Island?" I'm like, "I think just Mike." So that was right before you just came over.
I saw her.
So it was honestly a lot better. They think they heeded to a lot of people's advice. It was a lot shorter. It only took less than 5 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was in kind of a rush to get off the dock, so.
Yep.
Dan was probably like, "Yes, we caught some big fish. Let me tell you about my day."
No, you know what I said? I was like, the guy that's coming in after me, he's the one you really want to talk to.
I remember one of my first years guiding. Yeah, I think I was in the sea hunt, right? And that was back when the limit was just over 28. We had a good day and caught a bunch of fish, but we ended up keeping 4 fish in like a bigger category, like 40-inch range. Looking back at it now, I'm glad we don't do that anymore. But the MRIP lady was down there, and she goes, "My ruler's not big enough. I can't measure these. You guys got to go." And my clients were like, "Yeah!" They're like, they were too big to measure for the scientists. So that was pretty funny. And yeah, so I wonder what the kind of data. Did you find any data from any of the mass fisheries or at least NOAA or anything like that?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah, mostly just fishermen.
Yeah, it was mostly in Maine. Most of the stuff on it's in Maine. There's just not enough in mass about it.
Yeah.
It would be cool if they really came back, but I think for them to really come back at a bigger pace, they're going to need to, I don't know, to maybe tame some of what they're doing with the nets and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how old that big fish was.
Yeah, yeah.
Any idea? Did you do like a length age chart or anything?
It should be between 25 and 30 years old, that fish was.
Oh, my God.
It's like older than you, Danny.
That is older than me.
How old are you?
27.
You're youngin'.
Wow.
You're too young to be this good at fishing, Danny.
I feel kind of bad. I almost feel bad.
What, killing it?
Yeah.
How'd it taste?
I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Have you been having halibut for the past week?
Yeah. I had a lot of halibut. It's very good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
ways.
I cooked it in the air fryer, and I put taco seasoning and panko flakes on it, and then had halibut tacos. It was unbelievably good.
Sounds like I'm going to your house for dinner tonight.
I find with halibut, it's important not to overcook it.
Yeah.
If you overcook it, it gets a little bit tougher.
It does,
seems like.
yeah.
Especially if you do like thicker.
To do it just right. And that's the thing, like the chunks of meat are so thick. And I definitely prefer the belly over the back because I
haven't even played with that yet. I took all the skin off everything.
Yeah, the white side is like a little thinner, so it's easier to cook it right. But I felt I was like Santa Claus in my neighborhood, like, "Hey, you want some halibut? Hey, you want some halibut?"
Everyone's like, "A what?"
Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, it certainly is a fish for the ages, man. Definitely a really, really cool fish. So when you were out there, you were fishing, were you guys just, so I remember talking to you, Mike, obviously during the winter, and I felt like every other day I was getting a text about a halibut, and I'm just like, "Oh my God, this kid better catch one because I can't do this anymore." And like the whole thing was, if we get a nice day in the spring, early summer, we're going. And then unfortunately that nice day was on a Saturday where I had 2 trips. So everybody got to go but me. And I was living vicariously through you the whole time. And the best text I got all day was from Mike saying, "Coming in heavy." And I was like, "What? Halibut? Tuna, poor beagle?" And he just wrote, "Yes."
I think he said halibut or poor beagle, and I said yes.
And then he sends me a picture with this halibut with like a 68 to 70-inch poor beagle sitting on
See
top.
here, we started this whole podcast. We're talking about that poor shark.
I know that thing.
Like,
That
most
poor
people would
shark
die
got
to
no
have one of
love,
those.
right? Anytime we get a poor beagle, we're all so psyched about it. That had, dude, it was the picture you sent me. It was sitting on the halibut, like the halibut was going to bed, and that was like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
It was just like on top of it, just hanging out. And then there was a picture of you and Danny all snuggled up on it.
Well, Danny warmed
That
up
was
his
cute.
harpooning skills with the.
Yeah.
He threw it quite a few times that day, actually.
Yeah.
He got the poor beagle like right through the face. It was perfect. Like through the brain, lights out. And so that was great. And then when we got the halibut up, we hit it once. I was encouraging Danny to throw the harpoon from like 200 yards away.
We weren't even on the leader yet. You see his green
Wait
dot
a minute.
coming up.
I heard a story. It was like 50 feet down. You're like, Danny, throw the fuck down. Did you hit it?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we hit it with the first one. It took about 30, 40 feet of dart line before it ripped out and proceeded to bleed itself out while it was down there. So then Mike just winched it up. We hit it with 2 more harpoons and like 4 more gaffs. And
When I came up the second time, there was just blood everywhere.
Yeah.
It was awesome. There was like, we had 2 harpoons ready and like 3 or 4 gaffs, and they were all in that fish, and I swear like 8 seconds.
Yeah.
We waited till it was a lot closer the next time, and then I was shaking so hard on the rod, I was just like, oh my God, it's right there. But at any time, the hooks, especially when you have
You never
when you
know.
have like, hooks on a jig, you don't know where it's hooked, and at any second they can just pull out and be gone forever. So, it was pretty tense there towards the end.
And the other thing
In a
about
good
Mike's
way.
fish, speaking of the jig, is that you could see someone else hooked it on the bottom jaw before
Oh, yeah.
and on the
Really?
right side, and it was all ripped off.
Yeah.
So he got away.
So thank you to whoever didn't catch that fish.
Probably somebody like.
know what's crazy
It's
is-
probably Dan an hour earlier. I'm standing on the bottom. I'm standing on the bottom. Break it off.
That's a funny joke. But it could have been someone 20 years ago.
Yeah, no
you know?
kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that was 260 pounds, right? And the state record was like, what, 305 or 302 or something like that? I looked it
think
up.
so. Something around there.
And that was caught, did you look it up? That was caught in 1965.
My Lord. Wow.
So, I mean, I never heard of a halibut around here. The one that Danny's talking about 125 pounds. Now that I think about it, I think I kind of remember. And that's probably the biggest one I've heard of get caught around here.
I've heard of some like the 150 range.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like our ideal scenario is getting like if we could get one over 100, close to 150. But I haven't heard of many over 150 around here anyways. Up in Maine, I've heard of some up, they get a little bigger up there.
Yeah.
But a lot more ground up there, and I think it gets hit not quite as hard. But down here I haven't heard of anything like that. We honestly didn't. If that thing had got off after the first dart shot, we would have said, I don't know. I think Danny said $110, $120,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. We
That's
would have
what I
thought.
was thinking.
We had no idea how big it was, and it fought hard. It didn't fight as hard as you might. Well, at certain times it fought very hard, and other times it was actually it came up like a kind of like a big fluke.
So before we get into the whole discussion of the fight, right? Let's walk me through your day. So you get out to where you're going. You have, you're all jacked up. You're doing something. I'm sure that whole, boy, we're a bunch of idiots if we think we're going to actually catch one today. Like, there's always that little creep in your mind, right?
Oh yeah, we're catching some bottom fish.
Yeah.
And then we were probably fishing for a bit, and I think it was either Nick or Chris who was like, "Oh, I see a shark." So I had a pitch rod rigged up for sharks. So it was like, I think it was just 130 diamond to a little trace of wire. Threw a fillet on it, pitched it out to the shark. Like poor beagles never do, he just ate it.
It was nice and easy, right?
Yeah, and I didn't even realize I had like 25 pounds of drag on him anyways. We winched him to the boat in like 5 minutes. Danny darted him right through the face and tied him up, cleaned him off, and then we just kept fishing. So that was a good start to the day. That was
Not bad when a
that
poor
was like a
beagle
half
just
an hour
comes to
in.
break it
Yeah.
up. Oh, that was right off the bat?
It was like probably half hour in, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
It was like our consolation prize. I was like, okay, at least we got something now.
Yeah, something cool.
On our way out, we sat there looking at the fish finder. We're like, okay, we want to go here. Oh, there's a 30-foot school of fish. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, there's another 20-foot school of fish.
Because you were trying to actually get away from those schools of fish.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you didn't want to be bothered by
A
it.
bit.
Correct.
We tried to, we didn't use, at least I didn't use teasers. I didn't want any of those knots in my line, which a lot of those, your traditional teaser knot will cut your leader strength by about 50%.
Yeah, those drop loops.
So if you've got 80, you're down to 40 and probably less than that with other knots.
Yeah.
And if you've got 50, then, you're way down there. So I kind of went streamlined approach. I wanted to maximize the chance of hooking one and not having it. You control the things you can control at a fight. You can't control where you hook a fish. Can't control what a fish does, but you can control your connections and all your terminal gear and the line and all that kind of stuff. So you stack all the things you can in your favor, and everything else just kind of falls where it does.
And I think that's what really separates the really good fishermen from the guys that are just going out there every time is like you're talking about, you were prepared for the poor beagle. Like you had a shock rod ready to go, right? You had all your knots, crimps, fresh leader, everything researched. You stepped up your game, made sure everything was tight. I'm sure knowing you probably tested everything, made sure it was good. And then you even made a conscious decision to actually fish away from the life so you had an opportunity to get the target of the halibut. And that's a tough thing for somebody to do, to go out there and say, all right, I'm not going to actively try to catch these fish I know I can catch, to find something different. Kind of a unique thing, too, kind of going back to my world about what my weekend inside was like. For example, I was just drifting the mouth one day, and, we got a couple 40s on the drift. And then we started getting a bunch of schoolies, and I'm like, we got to get out of here. I'm like, these fish are still here, but like all these schoolies are just getting to our baits before the big ones. So we just made a little adjustment in our drift, and for the next 7 drifts in a row, we got at least 1 40-incher, and it was awesome. But the second we started getting like 2 or 3 schoolies or like short slots, the big fish kind of would disappear, and I would actually move my drift. I mean, fishing was good, so at that point, I could move off the small fish. And I just found on those drifts where we weren't getting the numbers, we were getting the quality. And I think a big part of that was the smaller stripers weren't getting to our mackerel before the bigger ones were.
Well, the thing, if you're spending all your time, reeling up other fish versus how much time your lure's in the bottom, then you're reducing your odds that way. The other thing you can do is buy your type of hook. Anytime you're swinging around a 10-aught treble hook on the bottom, you just have a much higher rate of snagging whatever is in the vicinity. And that's a lot of cranking up and down, which stuff can hit when you're cranking up and down. So there's something to be said for that. But, I picked a jig with an assist hook because in my experience, I've snagged a lot less fish with assist hooks. It happens, but not as much as a big honking treble hook below a Norwegian jig.
Oh my God, imagine snagging that thing sideways with a Norwegian. That would have been fun.
We had no idea at first. The head jigs were so big, I was kind of like, maybe it is snag doing something weird. But we really had no idea where it was hooked, or we had a pretty good idea it was a halibut. Well, Danny knew before I knew that it was a halibut. He just kind of remember he just looked over and just goes, "Yep," and everyone just started reeling up.
Yeah, that's the bite we're looking for.
So, Mike, were you the one that actually hooked it?
Yeah.
So, what was going through your mind? You're jigging, all right? Were you right on the bottom? Were you reeling it up? Because I know we had talked earlier. You kind of researched that some of these things would chase a jig up like 100 feet and actually hit it mid column. Yeah. So, like, kind of where were you on that particular hit?
I was on the bottom. Actually, I think I'd recently dropped to the bottom, and I just remember it was like midway through my swing, and it just felt like I hit bottom, and but I was midway up, so I knew it wasn't bottom.
Yeah.
But my mind also was kind of like, that really feels like bottom. And then bottom kind of shook its head, and some of the biggest head jigs I've ever felt. And then I was like, oh, that feels like what we're after. And Danny and Chris instantly knew what it was.
Yeah, we got to give the rest of your crew a shout out. So you had Danny with you. You also had Chris Ford, who's another guy that worked on the party boats with us.
Yep.
Father's a commercial fishing family. Great guy. And who's the other person?
Our buddy Nick, who lives in Boston. He fishes down the Cape a lot.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. We had 4 guys in the boat who do a lot of fishing, who have killed a lot of big fish. And we're very familiar with all the tools of the trade. One thing I'll say with halibut is harpoon it if you can, because they look very docile, but when they start flopping, it's a force to be reckoned with. And just sticking it with a gaff is probably not going to work out real well.
And then Dan had the 2-man crew, just you and Justin, another party boat guy.
So it's funny he says that because like when we got back, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to learn a couple of things here. For me, it was more of a learning experience because these guys did all the research. It was kind of like, all right, we're just going to be the other boat, going to make it happen. I got the gear to do it, going to invest the time to make it happen. I went out there with very low expectations and the willingness to learn, and I came back and. And the first thing I did was buy another dart and another gaff. If I am ever in that situation, I want to be prepared. But shout out to Ledge Life Tackle because I got a sick custom gaff from them, a 6-footer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that thing is awesome.
Yeah, the gaffs are good. The harpoons are really important. The harpoons are just safer. Whether you do a ball or cleat it off or whatever, and as long as your legs are not in the way or anything, with a gaffs start flying around, people get stuck.
Those fly gaffs scare the shit out of me.
Fly gaffs can be kind of terrifying.
We hit the thresher with one, man, and that thing flung out. No, thank you.
So say for halibut, it might actually not be a terrible tool, but the one thing you want to do with the halibut too, I think Danny was telling me this as well, just like fluke and most other fish, is like if you get them up near the surface, you do not want to pull their head out of the water until they're coming in the boat, because they will generally freak out.
Yeah.
And, it's a good way to lose them or get hurt or have them pull you in the water or something. So keep them in the water. I mean, with a halibut, if you're going to dart it, they're usually plenty far enough under. I mean, it's really hard to judge this. At least we had a really hard time judging the size of the halibut, because it ended up being like 80 inches long, we think. Yeah, we measured it, right? Was it 80 inches?
Yeah, it was 80 inches.
And we had no idea. It was literally that big till we were trying to haul it over the side, and we're like, oh, this is pretty heavy. Like, and they're slimy too, so you think it would kind of slide right in there, but it took some replacement of gaffs, so you're not. One of the other easiest ways to get hurt too is when you're trying to haul a big fish over the side of a boat with a bunch of gaffs. If one gaff rips out, you're gonna gaff your buddy. So before you do something like that, you really want to, PSA, put those gaffs, make sure your hooks are not going to bend out on you if it's not a cheap gaff, but also reset them in a really good spot where they're not going to fly out and gaff your buddy in the jugular or something like that.
And then also keeping a clean deck, making sure you're not like checking it and walking backwards and tripping over shit, or at least keeping an eye out where you are. Even with the harpoon and the dart line too, that's always something you got to
clearing the deck super important.
Yeah. So, Mike, at what point in the fight? So, was it after Chris and Danny were like, "Yep"? Did you get like a shot of adrenaline? Were you nervous?
Oh yeah, it was terrifying.
Terrified.
I was like, "This is my one shot in my life at a halibut, and don't screw it up.
Don't fuck it up."
Yeah, exactly. And we what was cool is we think we marked the halibut before we actually a tuna on the bottom, like a tuna mark I don't know, 5 feet off the bottom, maybe, Danny, right, or something. But it was that kind of almost that classical arch.
Interesting.
And I made a joke, actually. I was like, oh, that's a halibut. And then we hooked up 10, 15, 30 seconds later. I don't know. It was pretty quickly thereafter. So I don't know if that was the same fish or whatever, but it sure seemed kind of coincidental that it happened like that. And, they're pretty impressive fish.
And Mike actually tried hanging the rod off, and everyone looked down and were like, nope, this is all you, bud.
Yeah. Well, I had caught the poor beagle, and so I was kind of like, all right, I don't want to, I don't like to reel everything in myself. I like to, spread it around, but no one else would touch it. And I was also trying to, I think, probably share the responsibility as well.
Yeah, if you lose it, it's going to be your fucking fault.
I was trying to get other people to keep jigging while we were fishing too, and none of them were touching a rod.
Let me tell you something. If I was on that boat, I would have made everybody reel up. No, we're not even risking this.
So the funny thing was I was talking to Chris afterwards. This was wicked funny, and I still laugh about what he said to me. And he was like, "Oh, so Justin caught it out?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Did he let you get a couple tugs?" And I was like, no, he did it all on his own. It was so funny. Did he let you get a couple tugs?
Well, I'm sure there was a couple tugs going on out there anyway.
Hey, why do you think it was just the two of us?
Cuddling with that halibut was pretty special.
So did you fight it from start to finish all on you, or did you guys pass it off?
No, I did. I tried to pass it off, but I ended up fighting it the whole time.
How long it took you?
50 minutes.
Yeah, was that to the first dart?
No, 50 minutes to when we hauled it in the boat.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that? Oh, okay. I thought it was okay. So that makes, I have no idea. I blacked out. But
guys, you see this Danny Lee over here just ripping off the facts? Yeah, it took 50 minutes. Yeah, we got him 260 feet. Yeah, the moon was this, whatever. This guy's got all the info.
Yeah, definitely.
He's on top of it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool when we finally hit the deck. That thud of a big fish hitting the deck is something that you just don't forget. Mm-hmm. And then just looking around and seeing all the dart lines everywhere and the gaffs. And
the mayhem.
The blood. And then we're laying down and all of a sudden you realize there's a shark next to your head and you're like, this is just the best day.
I've never seen a halibut in real life until that was the first one I think I've ever seen in real life. I just want to say
the best day besides my wedding. Just want to clarify.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations. Recently married, Michael.
Oh, thank you. Congrats.
Cheers. Wouldn't have happened unless you had a great officiant right here. So for hire in the fall, if anybody needs to get married, I'm $40 on Google. It's all it takes. I think I'm sanctioned by the Universal Life Church.
Oh,
So,
look at
Sounds
you.
legitimate.
but yep. Also, I'm
Is that the Church of Scientology?
Tom wasn't mad at me when I was done, so I think I did a good job.
Did a great job.
That's all that mattered. It was a beautiful wedding, a lot of fun. So,
Beautiful union.
you know, unfortunately, it was a weekend in May, and the striper bite was pretty good that day, but we'll let it slide. We thought we were a little smarter than that, but it's okay.
Yep.
People still showed up.
They did. Yep.
Dude, the bachelor party was fun because it was just pretty much a friggin' masterclass in fishing. Everybody there was a diehard fisherman, and I think that's all we talked about for 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Everybody was comparing notes all up and down the coast. It was a lot of fun.
So, Mike, when reeling this thing in, obviously it's a lot bigger than a fluke. You've caught fluke before, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that the fight is like similar, like the patterns?
Yeah, as
it
Danny
is?
said, they're just giant. He says he was telling me during the fight, they're just giant fluke.
Yeah.
And that's what they are. I mean, they come up, they go down. I mean, I would say getting them off the bottom was pretty hard. Like that fish did not want to leave the bottom.
And that's
Yeah,
a
that's
star
what
drag
they
reel,
try to
so
do,
you
right?
don't have that low gear power, right?
Well,
Like a
it
two-speed
does
would.
have some pretty phenomenal power because of that
The
handle
design
and
of it.
gears.
Yeah, the handle and
'cause
the
it's specialized. Like I'm telling you, it's like a winch, but it's designed for jigging. That's it because it doesn't have a clicker. It doesn't have a lot of other things.
Yeah.
It's kind of
So
a
you can't
really
leave it on the rod holder.
expensive purpose. I mean, you could, but yeah, there's other. A lever drag's a lot more versatile.
I almost got one, and the only reason why I didn't is because it doesn't have harness lugs.
I don't like harness lugs anymore. Like Danny and I caught a lot of tuna last year down the Cape on jigs, and we never used a harness once.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
We rail rodded it a bunch, and we swore a bunch, and we passed the rod off a bunch. But I used to love the harness and use it a ton, and I don't even think I used it once all of last season.
I don't even use it shark fishing anymore,
Yeah, it's
man. It's
another
making
thing
me
having a
nervous
boat.
with customers lately.
I will say, after that tuna day we had, I did get, I call it the D-saver, but that
Yeah.
that foam pad is what's up.
Yeah, they tried to give me the foam pad on the cushion a little
Yeah.
they were on while I was fighting the fish, but I've got this weird thing when I'm fighting a big fish.
Yeah, you're doing what's working right now.
Well, I don't.
No,
I
you don't. You
I
want
don't
to
change
be
anything.
movable. You
Yeah.
want. To, well, you.
No,
pro-
it's not. It's not even that. I could have just
Yeah.
stuck the foam thing on, but I don't change anything.
Yeah.
If I'm
You're in
wearing,
it.
if I'm wearing a jacket and I'm sweating my whatever off,
Yeah.
jacket stays on.
Dude, because
You
that,
know,
that
whatever.
1 second you take that jacket
no,
off.
no, it's not that.
Yep.
It's completely superstitious.
It's the superstitious?
I don't change anything. It's nothing to do with like actual matters, but
So once you capture the Kundalini, you do everything to keep
that's
the
it.
Kundalini
I just
together.
whatever's going on, it goes on.
And the Kundalini was strong that day.
I'm not even sure what that is. But yes.
I don't know. What was the Kundalini again? I remember we talked about the boat one
all right,
day.
so there was it was a fishing trip that I had. So when we booked a charter with you, Chris, with some of my coworkers.
Okay.
Remember that? And then that kid Sam was with us.
Yep.
And Sam showed up, and he was like dressed dressed to impress.
He dressed like he was like
Yeah.
going to go close a business deal.
And then I was joking around like, "Yo, we got to bring the chi. We got to bring." And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just goes, "Yeah, you got to bring the Kundalini." And I'm like, "The Kundalini?" And then like, yeah, he was talking about how like the Kundalini is like it's the state of being type deal,
Like the aura, the
yeah,
goodness.
yeah, exactly.
The Kundalini.
So it kind of stuck, and I use that term all the time.
I know. You said it on the podcast quite a few times. Like, I knew the gist of it, but I couldn't exactly remember where it came
So
from.
the Kundalini, it's a real thing. We'd have to give it a quick Google, but it's an inside joke.
Well, whatever it is, Mike, Danny, you guys got it. So you had a great little trip. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we could go into here?
Well, we're gonna try to catch a swordfish next, but we'll talk about that when it happens.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
yeah,
the
that's
swordfish is another one I've been hearing about
So
all
listen,
winter.
one thing
so.
I can say about these guys, Danny and Mike, amazing fishermen, and their ability to research this and put this whole thing into play, like it could not have happened without them working together to make it happen. So yeah, it's just honestly a very impressive thing to me. So if Mike says they're going to get a swordfish, I'd say there's about I'm going to give him an 80% chance that that's
take
going to
that.
happen.
Hey, I caught a black sea bass today, actually.
Saw that.
Boom.
Oh,
Done so.
nice.
Hey, another thing about that black sea bass, 3rd year in a row, Father's Day weekend. 3rd year in a row, Father's Day weekend in the same spot while fishing for mackerel.
Wow.
Interesting. And they're getting a little bit bigger every year.
We saw that come over the rail from afar, and I was like, "That is not a mackerel." And I was like, "It doesn't look like a flounder either." And it wasn't. And I thought maybe it was a big cunner or something. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
No, black. It'd be cool if we had like a viable fishery with those.
They're so much fun.
They're a
I've been
riot.
seeing a lot of like the cod out there too, the red ones.
Yeah.
Oh, the rock cod
Yeah,
inshore?
the rock-
Yeah.
Actually, the ones
Like
I've
there's a
been catching,
huge school of them underneath my boat today.
We used to catch slammers working on the party boats when I was in like high school out at Breaking Rock and whatnot.
Danny, you'll get a kick out of this, right?
Like, it was
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Remember your early charter years when we were working on the party boats on the Angler? I'd call Mike. I'd be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He goes, "Our bass fishing was slow, but dude, this 3 mile line jig bite,
Yeah.
I'm catching keeper cod." Mike would just be like, "You want to get something?" He'd go out and catch 2 or 3 keeper cod. And
We used to catch
play
haddock
around.
out there
Yeah.
at the 3 mile line. Like, we never slammed them. We catch a half dozen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, you're 3 miles out. I mean, you can't do that around here. Maybe off Cape Ann you can, but, not on the Merrimack.
Dude, remember back in the day, like especially my early years in the party boats, how many like dogfish were inshore too? Like we used to drift the mouth and catch dogfish, or like bluefish, and we would get dogfished out. I haven't caught a dogfish inside, and I mean, granted, we're not
I'm
fishing.
not complaining
party
about
boats.
that.
Yeah,
I'm not either.
So now we're going to catch
those
nothing
can
but
go to hell.
dogfish.
No, you just jinxed us, Chris. We're gonna go out there and get dogfish
I'm
to
just
shit
gonna
now.
keep my mouth shut.
I don't know. I think I have like PTSD from working on the party boats by myself with 50 passengers, and everybody has 2 dogfish on for like 4 hours straight. Oh, those were the days.
Yeah, if you guys ever fished on a party boat that's packed on a weekend and everyone's getting dogfish and you think it sucks, try being a mate on that where all 50, 60 people have 2 dogfish on all at once, tangling lines.
Oh, yeah, there are days when we let go hundreds of dogfish.
Yeah, I don't miss that at all.
No, that's...
Have you ever eaten a dogfish?
So, funny thing, I actually have, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, I've
I don't
heard
know
that. Like
why.
if you eat them same day, they're not bad.
It's a very, like, white fish, like almost like, if I remember correctly, like white, like that table white, not like off-white opaque, like a haddock fillet or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like a, I don't know, very, very bright white.
Yeah, there was a rumor. I don't know if it's a rumor, but I had heard with a non-credible source that like in the UK, the fish and chips, a lot of the time it is dogfish.
Heard
They
the same
commercially
thing.
harvest them.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
Yep.
I've also heard that a lot of the scallops in New York,
That's not true.
that they're skates.
No, yeah, because think about it. Like, how many skates would you have to catch to pass that? It would be more expensive than just getting scallops.
I don't know, man. Scallops are expensive.
But
think
think of
it's
how
one of
many
the high-
skates it would take, like, right? Like, you're plugging
Well, no,
skates.
you-
Well,
They-
not
they
little
stamp
skates,
it
like
up.
Big skates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a thing.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know. I don't eat fish, so that.
Yeah, that's so funny that you don't eat fish.
So weird.
I do a lot of weird things.
Not only
Dan.
are you a fisherman, you're Greek, so it's like, I don't know. It's in your blood.
Yeah, I'm just working with what I got, Dan.
Oh, man. So, are we going to do a members only?
Yeah. So, guys, we're going to wrap it up here in a second. Thank you all for listening about the story between Mike's halibut. If you want to get into a little bit more detail, we're going to go talk a little bit more of the technical stuff on our members-only website. So, for Mouths of the Merrimack members, just hop on our page and you can check out the video. If you're not a Mouths of the Merrimack member, we invite you to join. We got a bunch of members, a lot of fun stuff. Tuna talks going on right now in the forums, so that's
Nice.
always a good thing. And, usually when we do these podcasts, we do a separate one for, half an hour or so, going over some more of the technical details of what we've been doing and what really works. So thank you guys very much for listening. Mike,
Yeah,
Danny,
congratulations, guys.
congratulations. Congratulations to Dan, too. I know.
Hey, I can drive a boat and wet pack a reel.
Justin's not here, but the fact that 2 of you guys, both boats went out with the idea to target a halibut, and you both came back successful, I think it just speaks to the amount of research and how you guys prep for this trip. I think a lot of people out there listening might not realize, like, this was work. This was a lot of work, and when you do the work and it comes together, I mean, just the fact that you guys caught a halibut, again, amazing. But then, Captain Mike over here with that golden horseshoe, just had to get a 260 pounder. So, but yeah, guys. So thank you guys for coming out. All right, for Mouths of the Merrimack members, check out the website. You can go to our members only video, and if you guys are interested, sign up. We got a really great community. Now that the fishing season's in full swing, everybody's kind of chatting, talking, helping each other up all up and down the coast. So,
Awesome. Yep. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the members only.
Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you.